Welcome to Three Witches and a Druid podcast, a Canadian podcast about paganism in today's modern society. Welcome to Three Witches and a Druid podcast. Today, we are just one Druid and one very confused editor. Welcome, where we sit around the Zoom table and drink tea. I don't know, you drinking anything?
Well, I have a bad leftover coffee from this morning.
You gotta love a bad leftover
it's not even
coffee.
like good coffee. It's Tim's, so it's like bottom of the barrel. I was too lazy to make coffee, so Karen brought me one. This may just be a patrons episode. It may be just used for social media. It may go in our regular rotation when we miss an episode. This is Brian, and I'm sitting here discussing creating the podcast itself with Krista, our wonderful magical editor. So
yes.
All the lovely voiceover work you hear, that's her.
Yeah, and what people don't hear is the very fun little notes to editor in the podcast where they apologize profusively, but do not need to.
And probably the parts where you curse at us for like, oh my God, just stop stuttering and spit it out.
No, I don't think that would be it. I think it's more, you guys are just so cute. Some of the tangents that go on that actually stay in the podcast quite often are fabulous. But I often will get that little message of, hey, Krista, so sorry. And I'm okay with that.
It's funny because at first the ladies would get all like, oh no, do we have to start all over again? It's like, no, we don't. That's not how any of this works. We can literally edit out any part. Well, we can, but it's Krista that's going to do it.
Yeah, all art is a lie.
Yeah, pretty much. So yeah, we started this podcast over COVID. I think me and Maeve were going to start a podcast. And then we sort of learned that Gwen and Margot were considering starting a podcast. And we said, why create two podcasts when we could create one? And that's where we went.
And it was all magic from there.
We started over Zoom, of course, because of COVID. I had to teach them how to use Zoom and their computers and their microphones, and they still sometimes to this day don't quite get it. Maeve is bad for eating her mic. That's why when there's Zoom episodes, Maeve's voice will go in and out. It's because it'll get sucked up into her shirt somewhere. And she won't even realize. She just doesn't pay attention. You see those influencers online that hold the mic up like this?
Oh, that makes me so crazy.
Because she just has like the earbuds and the little mic. But this will get all wrapped up.
I feel like sometimes you see those, well, I hate to say it because I have been watching some lately, but they're those reality television shows and they now have necklaces that will have a mic on it.
Oh, really? I haven't seen
And I'm
that.
kind of obsessed because I'm thinking that is the smartest thing. It's not rubbing up against anything. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
Pretty smart. So I was actually told a while back, one of the reasons you see TikTok influencers who are successful who do that, who will use the earbud, it's because it's them attempting to still keep a foot in reality. Even though they're like, some of them are making millions of dollars and they could go to a recording studio and do all this. But by having their little earbuds and the microphone, you as a viewer are like, oh, that's still like a poor person, just like me. Nah.
Yeah, but they're not.
They're not. No, they're not doing this for free. Let's just put it that way. So yeah, when they use those hinky-dinky little mics and stuff, it's because that's them attempting to show that they're a real person, just like
So
me.
we're not real people, obviously.
Well, you have a nice fancy mic there. I have a nice.
Not fancy.
No? It
No.
looks fancy.
Thank you.
What is
that
it?
is, it's, gosh, it's so funny. I got it on Amazon for, I want to say, it was about $60. And to me, that is expensive because even if I was a millionaire, I'd still be like, no.
So when I first got into this, I have a friend who's a bit of a gearhead, like outside of you, who's an audio gearhead. And she was like, yeah, you can buy a $20 microphone or a $400 microphone. And to you, it won't make any difference. But to me, I can tell the difference. And it's like, luckily, I don't think and this is not a slight on our listeners in any way. I don't think the vast majority of our listeners are audiophiles.
No, and if they are, you're not in the right podcast. Like,
right.
You got to go
at the
find
same
yourself
time,
some ASMR stuff.
At the same time, I realize, and I've listened to this, I find it hard sometimes to listen to our own podcast because I'm still trying. Well, I'm trying to figure out the audio, and it's hard to listen to because I am not an audio engineer. Basically, when we record, you need to come and set up all our equipment. Yeah,
because, I mean, God love you guys, but there are times where one of you will be really low, and it could just be the mic's not quite, and then everybody else is really high, so I'm going in and having to shift all the levels. I'm like, oh my God.
Well, that's also just kind of the way we lay ourselves out. We're lounging on couches, laying back, drinking, and then the microphone is here. And like some people will come up and talk into the microphone, and then others will like talk over here. And it's like, you got to talk into the microphone, ladies.
Yeah, I think what I would love to do, and I don't know if this is an option, but one day I would love to come out and film you guys like doing an episode.
Yeah.
Just to kind of showcase what you guys are really all about. Like, you can explain what you're doing, but right. I think it would be so great to see just a little snippet, just a little something of you guys actually sitting around. And some of the mannerisms would be fantastic.
Yeah, so we started with one Yeti mic that we sit up in the middle of the table and just all sort of talk into. We realized, like, that's not the most ideal. And I think where I realized that was the worst idea we could do was we did a Halloween episode with a ghost hunter. And it was such a good episode, but it sounds so bad. Like,
I love you to death. But my God, that one nearly killed me.
Yeah, it was the worst. So, and that's when I realized, like, we need a better setup. This isn't working.
Yeah.
So we found, what's it even called? Zoom Pod Chaser. And it's a little device, and it allows me to plug 4 microphones into it. And that's what we use now. So we have 4 Shure mics. They were about, I'd say probably about $100 per mic. Got the stands on Amazon for really cheap, like $25.
Yeah.
And the mics came with their own cords. And so yeah, all the expenses like in the microphones themselves.
Yeah. I think what people don't realize is it's not that difficult to set it up. Like you do have to invest a little bit.
Yeah.
Yay, Amazon, you put some money into it and anybody can do it. Just do it.
Yeah. You're like, so. And the nice thing is podcasting is an incredibly accessible format for anyone who wants to do it. I definitely appreciate you editing. Don't be that shocked. But like, if you were new to this and you were like, well, there's things that are keeping me away from it. It's all easily learned.
I'm completely self-taught.
Yeah.
So yes, I have my little business. Yes, I do my editing, podcasting, video, all that. But it's completely self-learned, all online YouTube, that kind of stuff. It's never been, you have to go to school.
No. And
I mean, I could be a lot better if I went to school, but
not necessarily. Like, you don't learn that much. I went to school for photography, and it's like, But what I'm saying though is like, you could easily learn to do this all on your own, and you could just use little Apple AirBud microphone. You don't need anything complicated.
That's the hot, cool thing to do anyways.
Yes. If you keep it simple, you can do it. Now, if at the same time you're like, well, I want to do this, you can just hire Krista. Just message her and she'll just do it for you.
Yes. Advertisement break. Hire me because I'm awesome and great to work with and very smiley.
Moving on from equipment, we were able to like set up a small Patreon, and like all the funds from Patreon they go and pay Krista.
Honestly, it's just so I can have coffee. It's just so I can have coffee. That's all it is.
Pretty much. So our Patreon, I'm pretty happy with it.
How are you feeling? Yeah, how are you feeling?
I wish we had a little bit more so we could pay you more.
Thanks.
But like I said, that the money doesn't go to me, Maeve, Gwen, or Margot. It goes to you. We've been able to expand a little bit and have you create a little bit of social media stuff. So that's been fun.
And you guys could do so much. You could do so much with social media. It's bonkers.
It's finding the time to do it.
Yeah. But I mean, the interesting point of views that each of you have, I think needs to be heard. You don't really hear it a lot, honestly.
Everyone needs to hear my opinion as a white middle class man. That's the important part. You need to know my feelings on the economy.
No, they need to hear the ladies bicker with you and kind of call you out.
Yes. But yeah, so Patreon has been a great tool resource. I think I need to go into our Patreon and make some adjustments. There's a $10 tier and there's a $1 tier. And I want to be able to give the people who contribute, say the $10 more.
Yeah.
There is a little program in there where you can send them cups and mugs and stuff like that. But it doesn't work financially. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
Well, unless you were highly established. If you guys had been around for quite a long time and you're good to go and you've got, t-shirts already and if you've got merch set up, then yes, that's future.
Yeah, exactly. So we actually sent a mug to an individual who was a $10 sponsor from day one. But then it came back his address was wrong.
So $10 sponsor, if you're still out there.
Yeah.
We got a mug for you.
Check your Patreon. I sent you 3 messages because your mug came back in the mail.
Was it nice?
Oh yeah, it's nice. It's like a little black mug with our logo on it.
I love that. Yeah. I would drink out of that.
Yeah. I think overall the experience has been positive. Mm-hmm. I've learned a lot. I've learned a lot about the audio tech world. It's not something I went into this knowing zero zilch nothing. I don't know anything about audio, don't know anything about recording. I knew nothing. I watched a couple of YouTube videos. I followed some subreddits about podcasting. I still do. I get pieces of advice from those on occasion. Yeah, it's been pretty good.
So what you're saying is that really starting this podcast has messed you up.
Well, yeah, a little.
Because now you bought a bunch of gear. Yeah. Now you spent the time to invest. You're ruined. You're just ruined for life.
Luckily now I keep all the gear at Gwen's house because that's mostly where we record. There was a long time we were lugging it back and forth and it's I don't want to do this anymore. So Gwen just cleaned out a closet and it's all stored there now. But Amazing. The nice thing about our little podcasting setup is it's very portable. It can plug into a wall, and that's what we do when we're at her place. We have a festival planned this year, and we're gonna take it to the we took it to last year to a festival, and we did some interviews and stuff, and it was
was so great. I loved seeing those interviews. I loved editing them. It was really nice to get that different on the go kind of perspective. It was really neat.
So we're gonna do more of that for sure. Another thing we've done for ourselves, I just said this to you a little while ago, we created a future schedule of upcoming episodes. The point is that we could see the date the episode is going to come out on versus, say, important months or dates. Because there's been a lot of times, there's been times where it's Indigenous Heritage Month. It's really wish we were interviewing somebody about this, but we missed it because I wasn't paying attention. So now with this calendar, I can line those up.
Correct me if I'm wrong, and I feel like I'm wrong. I feel like I saw something and I'm wrong, but it's fine. But isn't this month Women History Month or something? It's
either way. Part of the issue is that we don't we have episodes recorded to get us through those months, so it's not we can even slot somebody in.
Right. But I mean, I think March is supposed to be Women's History Month. I did a podcast for women in VFX, visual effects, and women in leadership roles in that sense.
Yeah.
And I believe it's slated to come out this month because it's Women's History Month. So future episode. Yeah. That could be cool. So or maybe, actually, you're interviewing me. I'm a woman.
There you go. Well, the podcast is 3 women. I'm the minority here.
I don't think you're getting a man.
No, I'm not getting any sympathy. But actually, on that note, it's funny you bring that up because one of the number one things that comes up in conversation all the time with Druidry is a lot of people are oh, that's a male-dominated religion. No, it's not. Not at all.
That's what I thought. And then you mentioned Karen, that she was Druid, and I was wait, can you do that?
70% of our grove is female, 60% of ADF is female, and And I think 75% of ADF clergy are female. Druidry does not have a gender.
That's cool.
The gender is like pop culture bullshit.
That should be a shirt. It should be Druidry does not have a gender.
It's like, hey, that's smart.
I'm a thinker.
So we get drunk and we record our episode poorly, and then we send it to you. What happens then?
Well, then I get drunk, and then I edit it poorly. No. You know what? It's actually not that complex, which is great. So by now, I've already gotten used to each of your voices, and kind of I have expectations before you send it along. And I've got a little template that I can kind of play with already set up in my workflow that I can just easily, remove some echo, remove like sort of boost the vocals and stuff like that, and remove background noise and whatnot. So that's nice. Just sort of a click of a button on that one. And then, yeah, it's just the process of going through, taking out the ums and ahs and little moments where people get off track. Which kudos to you. You tend to bring everybody back.
I feel that is my role, is to keep the other three on the same line of thought.
Yes, you're like the ringmaster.
Yes.
That's the only way I can put it. But it's nice. It's kind of interesting to see both sides, is that we'll get you asking a lot of, not necessarily directing questions, but it's very much, because I feel like you guys could talk for hours, no problem, without interruption, and just keep going. But having, say, if a Patreon, because we need more of those, or someone who's just a viewer will write in and ask a question, you kind of got to answer the question. So
yeah,
that's also my job too, is to remove things that don't make any sense.
Right.
And that's fine. And yeah, then I'll just, find some music that's low enough and put it in, make it sound pretty. And yeah, you guys are quite easy to work with. I don't have too many problems. It's, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I sound like I don't do anything, man.
Why are we paying you then?
Because I'm amazing. I'm that good. It's right. I don't do anything. No, it can be tricky. I mean, I do have to sit down and listen to the entire episode.
That's a job in itself.
That's sort of the lovely part of coming into this as well, because although I consider myself pagan personally, it's interesting because I have been on the sort of side of not really knowing what I am for a very long time. I'm under a very interesting umbrella, so every single episode I will know a little bit about a topic, but I really find it's interesting. I learn a lot.
Right.
I learn a lot, and I want to be able to help make that episode teach other people a lot of things too.
Right.
So that's my thing. So I might rearrange some stuff every so often if it doesn't make sense. And I try to keep the tempo going, moving big spaces out. It's the monotonous work that people don't want to do. That's what I do.
Right. So we're up to episode 63. Obviously, we started at episode 0. What do you think has been some big improvements from episode 1?
The flow is a lot better, I think. You guys have gotten into a really great habit of just sort of knowing how to play off of each other and knowing almost when to allow each other to take breaks.
Yep.
It used to be a lot of talking over each other, and that was tricky because I'm kind of like, okay, so I can't keep that line in, even though it's interesting or it's poignant to the topic. I can't keep that in because you're all talking at the same time.
Right. That was one of the that's one of the comments from Apple Podcasts, is that some people felt we talked over each other a little too much. Now it's funny that comes up because there are podcasts where they talk over each other that I have no issue whatsoever. Mm-hmm. And there's other podcasts that I listen to where it's so formulated and scripted that they never speak over one another. And that to me is almost weird.
Yeah, I agree.
There's a cult podcast I listen to, and it's very scripted, but it's I borderline sometimes have a hard time listening to it because it feels like I'm listening to a book and not a podcast, where you have something like last podcast on the left, where they're just constantly talking over each other and constantly yelling at each other. And I love it. But my wife, Karen, she can't listen to it at all. She hates it.
It's all about preference.
Yeah.
You know, even when we were recording and you would send the individual files from each Zoom or each mic, I would still every so often keep certain words that would go over each other or a little laugh that would go over another one, because I also felt the same way. You need to be able to connect with the audience and make it feel real.
Right. So
and the conversation isn't like that.
And that's one of the things. We are not in any way scripted. This is let's discuss the day before. What are we going to talk about? Yeah, I got some bullshit to talk about on that topic. There's no research behind this. This is just our experiences.
What do you mean day before? Because I have legitimately, and here's a little bit of tea to give some people out there.
In the last 2 episodes, we literally decided 10 minutes before we recorded what we were going to talk about.
And I'm crying laughing as you guys are discussing these things. It's great. It's great.
Yeah, it varies. Depends on the topic.
I will now discuss why it's so important for people to join Patreon.
There you go.
Please give us money. Support the podcast. Be amazing. I can talk about that. When you came to me and said that the introduction that you wanted a voiceover, I hadn't really done any type of voiceover work. I hadn't done any type. I sit behind the camera and film, and I sit in the big editing chair, and I do my editing, but I hate to listen to myself. I hate to see myself. I mean, I don't hate to see myself. I'm very vain, but I don't like listening to myself. It makes me crazy. So for someone to come up to me and say, "Oh, I want you to do the voiceover," and I'm like, "Oh no, oh no." So I got through that, and even now I will listen to it back and cringe a little bit.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with singing. Like, I love to sing, but I'll hear myself on a recording and I'm like, oh God, no. Why? But now that I've done it a few times, and for those who don't know or aren't a part of the Patreon, that is one of the levels that we've added some meditation work.
Yes, it has actually. It's super beautiful too. And it's funny. And I'm not just saying this because you're on here and I'm blowing smoke up your arse. Finding a good meditation online is hard. Mm-hmm. There's so many like meditations that are done, and I can't listen to them because of the voice. It's like, I love you as an individual, but you have a voice for...
I'll say newspaper. You have a voice for newspaper.
That's a good one. I'm going to keep that.
Thank you. But no, I did. For the longest time, I thought I couldn't do voiceover. I didn't like the sound of my own voice.
Constantly am pushing you to do like voiceover work. I send you voiceover work all of the time. And I think you should do more of it. And I think I'm still a strong believer that you should do the meditation channel.
I might. We'll see.
Like, what else do you do? You've literally got nothing else going on.
Ouch.
It's true.
Ouch. Well, no, that's not true.
It is true. You're like, I need a job and I need to make money and work. Well, here's stuff that you're very good at. Go do that and make money at it.
So the truth is, I really like to be busy. I don't like not having things to do. I have to be busy all the time or I'll go crazy.
Yeah.
And have to think in my head. So I do another podcast as well that you know.
Yes.
And I edit for that, and I do the video work for their YouTube channel and things like that. And that takes up time, but it only takes a day in the week. Like, it's maybe, I don't know, 12 hours every 2 weeks. Like, it's not a lot. So I'm like, okay, that's done. What do I need? What do I do now? Like, you know? And then my video work and photography work I do with you as well. That's, gigs every so often. So it's not steady. That's my problem, is that I like to be busy. I like to do stuff. Okay, so what you're saying is that I should start a meditation channel and just pay you to do it all, and I will get all the profit, is what you're saying. I don't know. I don't know if I like that.
No, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do it right now.
But on a serious note, it was a wonderful push. It was a wonderful push to actually start doing that and kind of feel good about it.
Yeah.
You know?
I'm trying to convince the ladies, and like they're willing to do it. I think I just need to direct them a little bit more because they want to create content for the Patreon. So one thing we're going to start doing is putting up rituals, and
yes,
between rituals and your meditations and such. I think
rituals would be amazing.
I think we'll get places with it, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. And recipes. I think you need more recipes. I love some of the drinks that you guys talk about. Like it's really neat to kind of see that side of it as well. Like you guys always talk about how you're drinking mead and things like that.
Right.
And it was funny because I did a cultural evening. I think I told you about that with my family. And my oldest, my now 12-year-old said he wanted to do medieval. Like a medieval themed dinner. And I was like, okay, well, I need something for me. And I was like, the ladies and Brian, they drink mead and that's old school medieval. So I got to get me some of that. Couldn't find it anywhere.
It's more accessible now than it has been. Like 10 years ago, you'd never find mead at the liquor store or even at a bar.
Well, I couldn't.
Yeah, well now you can. You can if you go to one of the big NSLCs, you can find mead. Scotland Brewing in downtown Dartmouth sells it. There's a meadery in Burnside.
Yeah,
there's a couple. And actually, one of the meaderies I mentioned, Usan.
Yeah,
the family one. Me and you need to hit them up about sponsorship /
yes, if you're listening, anybody who creates really cool delicious drinks.
You send us a couple of drinks and we will just talk about you over and over.
We'll talk about you. We'll do a little tasting.
Yeah,
I'll film it.
Then we'll talk a lot about you. Yeah.
I love that. Yeah, opening to sponsors. So I guess that would be a question from me then. I know it's supposed to be you talking to me about my whole vibe, but where do you see this podcast going? Is that something you're interested in, like sponsorship? Are you interested in becoming bigger or?
So it's funny you say that because back in September, we had a huge spike in viewership. And I think what happened, and they all came from Spotify. I think what happened is that we somehow had gotten highlighted in an ad for Spotify at some point. And so on average, on release day, yesterday, our average listenership on release day is about 500 downloads. So we're not huge, but
you're not tiny.
Nope, but for a niche podcast, which is very not everyone's going to listen to this. We're only a very small bracket of people or have any interest in this whatsoever. 500 is pretty good.
Brian, 500 people care what you think.
Yeah, right. See, as a middle-class white man, that's important to me. So
you're going to get so many followers unfollowing.
They already know how I feel.
Now say you're the good one. Say you're one of the good ones.
I'm the good one. In September, our viewership for release day was 2,500. And then the next day was 2,700 for one episode. It is that water episode.
That was done. That wasn't the first one. That was did you get a third?
No, there was 4 in that series.
Yeah.
But that episode in particular has 6 times more views than every other episode.
But just curious, in the series, when did that one come? It was
the last one.
That's why.
Yeah.
People like a 4-part series. That's what it is. It's if you put out series.
I think it was because we got highlighted somewhere in Spotify. And when that happened, we got inundated with people wanting to sponsor us. And we got hit up with, so we use Acast for hosting. Acast is a Canadian podcast host. And as Canadians, we're able to advertise. So because of that episode, it allowed us to turn on advertising, which is just funds that go more to Krista. So on our Patreon is a non-advertised episodes And on our stream, it has a little ad at the beginning and a little ad at the end, and that's it. All of the idea of sponsorship came because of that episode, and it just kind of, our email blew up. Mm-hmm. And then we went back to like the next episode, we went back to our normal 500 listeners. And it's like, okay, well, that's because it was a marketing thing.
Not necessarily. I think people like completion. For example, binging something on Netflix. If I have started watching something, I'm going to finish it. Even if I don't like it, I just need to know.
Yeah.
And it drives me crazy.
So the sponsorship emails, we don't get them so much anymore. But every episode we release, we gain about 10 to 20 listeners. So if you look on our little graph, it's always going up, and it's up. September, up. And it's still going up. It's never gone down. It goes down a little bit in over the summer. But
that's logical.
Yeah, we knew that going into everything.
Well, it's because all the pagans are partying.
Yeah.
In summer. My other question too, you bring up being recognized or sponsored or being highlighted. Yeah. You just moved up in a particular...
Yeah, so we are... What's that even called? Feed spot?
I'm not sure. It was something you forwarded, but it had to do with... You guys had been ranked before being a certain...
Yeah, so when you type in top pagan podcasts or best pagan podcasts or pagan podcasts in general, there's this site that comes up called FeedSpot. And FeedSpot ranks different podcasts. And when we first started out, they had emailed us and said, hey, we've added you to our list. You are currently 16th on our list of top podcasts. And we're like, oh, okay, that's super nice.
When might that have been that you were ranked 16? Just curious.
Oh, like around the end of season 1.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now we're rounded out. We're at season 3.
Yeah, and now we've moved from 16th, we moved to 12th, and then we moved to 8th, and now we're currently 4th.
Amazing. 4th,
now,
that's crazy.
I don't think that's going to change a whole lot going forward. Druid Cast is, of course, the top one. That's, we're never going to pass. We're never going to pass that. And then next is 3 Pagans and a Cat. And then it's 3 Pagans and a Cat has been around for a long time.
Well, you're never going to beat that. They've got a cat.
Right? We need a cat. We have a cat. We just don't really talk about him a whole lot. It's Gwen's senior cat. If you ever listen like really closely, you'll most likely hear him purring.
I have heard the cat. I can 100% say that I have heard this cat, and I want to find it.
And then there's another, and I don't think I've ever listened to this one, The Wonder, Science-Based Paganism.
Oh, that would be interesting.
Yeah, I probably should download it. It's been around since 2020.
I also feel like that would be a really interesting topic for you guys to get into. Not to steal their idea.
No, that's an episode we have lined up. We have a guest that's going to come on and talk to us about spicy psychology.
Yes. I love that. I will listen heavily and await that. So everybody, start listening. You might get that one.
And then we have, of course, us, 3 Witches and a Druid. And then in 5th is Millennial Pagan Podcast. I've heard of this one. I haven't listened to it yet. And then one of my favorite podcasts, Down at the Crossroads. They're based in New Jersey. I've listened to them for a couple of years now. They're very, very good.
Love it.
They don't come out with episodes very often. It's like once. It used to be more often, but now it's like once every 2 months. And then there's Pagan Pathway Temple Podcast. I don't think I've heard of them. But Twixt in Between, I have listened to them. It's very good.
But
podcast.
the best one is obviously 3 Witches and a Druid.
Of course, yes. But yeah, so there's lots of good podcasts on that list. There's a lot of content out there. Like we're not the only show, but our topic is quite niche. So we're not expecting to hit like top podcasts of all time or anything.
I also like the fact, and perhaps it's just me, but because you guys have such different backgrounds and you all have experienced such different things, it's really interesting for anyone to listen to.
Well, I hope so.
I think so.
You asked where do I see us going? One thing I'd really like for us to do more of is more community interaction, like on our social medias. Anyone can message us on Instagram and we'll reply. Most podcasters and most influencers, they're not going to reply because they're super popular and getting bombarded with questions. We get like once a week, so you can message us and we'll actually reply.
You'll talk to a human. That's what you're saying. You'll talk to a person. You'll
probably end up talking to me because the others don't know how to use Instagram.
You'll end up making friends. That's what it is.
But we've put up a couple of times about like, what are some episodes you want to hear? And we've created those episodes. Actually, the last episode that just came out, What Would You Say to Your Younger Self, was a listener suggestion.
I liked that one. That was really good.
Yeah. The episode about pagan spirituality and health and healing was a listener.
Yeah, I liked that one too. I mean, I like them all.
That one came from Patreon, actually.
Very cool. Very cool. So in that case, what have you learned?
I am not an audio engineer in any way. Equipment doesn't matter. Having not necessarily the brand name of equipment, but having the proper equipment matters. Having one Yeti microphone for 6 people does not work. You need dedicated mics.
Yeah, but to that point, you still got started. You still took the opportunity to try something that if you hadn't done, you would not be at episode 60, whatever. Like
63, yes.
You really have taken an opportunity and run with it instead of just sitting there and saying, oh, I really wish we could start a podcast. You did it. Hey, you get a couple people saying they don't like it or they don't like the sound. You can always improve.
Yep. So some of the things we have coming up is we have a lot of interviews. We have a lady from Germany, the Nordic Witch, who's going to come on and talk about being a social media influencer. I have John Drum from ADF going to come on and talk about being the Archdruid of ADF. I have a lady in Portugal who's written a book. We're going to try to have on. We have Kirk Thomas of ADF in the United States to come on and talk about pagan prisoners, being pagan in the prison system.
That's cool.
There's a couple of things sort of in the pipes that are all ready to go.
I like that. So what you're saying is that 3 Witches and a Druid, it's not going anywhere.
No. Until we get like super bored of it, I don't think it'll go anywhere. One thing we learned our lesson about last year, though, is we need to have enough episodes recorded so we don't have to record over the summer, because trying to line ourselves up in the summer months was really difficult.
I think that's a smart way to go, because if you don't have banked episodes, then you just either run out of things to say or you run out of time. Stuff happens all the time, right? Like you could fall down a flight of stairs and not be able to go anywhere. So yeah, we have Zoom, but you're not going to want to get on Zoom.
No. And this is by far the least desirable way to do this. If it was... No. Like, I mean, like the whole plan was for me and you to go together, like to a bar or a coffee shop, but we're expecting a big snowstorm now, so we can't do that.
Yes, welcome to Canada, where we have snowstorms randomly, and it was just sunny.
Yes,
So
we kept putting this episode off because I ended up getting COVID and such. So like we'll do this again, maybe on a different topic, but like we'll try to do it in person. We're not purposely trying to do it over Zoom.
So for a very long time with this podcast, anytime you or the ladies would mention your editor, I'd actually remove it.
Why? Why would
just
you do
even
that?
saying thank you?
No, don't do that.
Because I'm essentially in the behind places. I'm quiet. I'm me quiet. I'm not wanting to take away anything. So
let's stop doing that.
Yeah, we talked about realism, but at the end of the day, you kind of do need an editor. You need somebody who is removed from the topics, is removed from the situation to be able to go in and be like, I could keep that in, but I gotta remove it because it doesn't make sense. Or I can be critical. You know what I mean? But I didn't want people to know you had an editor, I guess, which is so silly.
They know we have an editor. The one thing that I kind of get a little jealous over sometimes when you listen to big podcasts is they'll have a producer. I'd like to have a producer someday.
Okay, and I have struggled over this for years, which is hilarious because I do film and audio and stuff. What the hell does a producer do?
They do all the work.
Great. So let me jot that down. I don't want to be a producer. I don't want to do that.
Yeah. They select the episodes. They are often in charge of the actual physical recording. They're the go-between between the host and the editor.
Right.
Technically, at this point, I'm the producer, I guess.
I was going to say, that makes you the producer.
Yes, I'm the producer.
I'm so sorry.
I wear a lot of hats.
So the next time we do this together, you have to come in wearing a bunch of hats. Like I want to see a top hat. I want to see a paperboy hat. I want to see a sombrero. I want to see a lot of hats.
I should have worn my wizard hat.
Oh,
it's a missed opportunity. I have a couple of wizard hats too.
I have a tiara.
It works.
And another crown too. I'll strap it to this and I'll have a little moment for you. I feel like my episode's not going to be very interesting because it's mostly tech, but I suppose my other question would be, what has the podcast taught you in the sense of your paganism or your druidry? Sorry, where has that have you gotten a better understanding of yourself in this, just from the different ideals?
I wouldn't say it's affected any of my beliefs or thoughts on that. It's affected my desire for community outreach.
Isn't that bad?
There's a lot of pagan influencers out there who are like, I know everything, listen to what I'm saying, and do. And there's nothing necessarily wrong with that, but one of my philosophical beliefs is I don't know anything. And I'm constantly learning, but at the same time, I understand that I have stuff to share with others. I want to be clear, I'm not an expert on anything.
Okay.
Yeah.
I like that though. In that case, you mean it's humbled you?
Well, I think... I wouldn't say I'm humble. I'm very egotistical. I have a lot of confidence. But yeah, I guess in a sense, yes, that's a good way to put it. I wouldn't say it has humbled me, but it has made me realize my humbleism.
Mm-hmm.
That a thing.
Well, I like that. I mean, because that's the real question. I think I stumbled a bit on my question, but it's essentially what this podcast has done for you, like being able to sit around with 3 other personalities and different guests and bring...
They are wells of knowledge. They know so much more than I do. It's hard to express, but trying to get it out of them. And that's what this podcast is a lot about, is trying to get that information out of them.
Oh, they're incredibly knowledgeable. I was a little nervous about, meeting the ladies because I was like, oh no, they do. You guys know a lot. And I'm just over here like, I don't know. I can edit some stuff. That's what I do. It's been an experience that I've really enjoyed. So
good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's pretty much it. Did you have any other questions, thoughts, ideas?
I will save them for the next time if any viewers want me to come back and say
yes, we'll definitely do this again.
Yay! It's always fun to get the opportunity to reach out a little bit, considering this is where I would normally be downstairs. I edit out of my basement studio. I have 3 screens. You can't see them. I have 3 screens going at any time, and it's nice to have interaction.
Yay!
Perhaps next time I'll have a cocktail and, we can...
Well, that's why I wanted to do it tonight, is because I can have a drink. I can't have a drink in the middle of the day. I gotta go pick up my kid.
You can. You just got to keep it out of frame.
Yeah, that defeats the purpose.
But no, we'll do that. We'll do that sometime. We'll sit and we'll have a drink. And I would love for the listeners, if they had any questions for me, send something in. That would be nice.
Definitely. And any questions, I will direct to Krista. No
Amazing. Problem. So thank you very much, everyone, for tuning in. We had a delightful time sitting around the Zoom table discussing ourselves.
And the podcast and the technical side.
The tech. So if anyone has any questions, or if they would like to go on and reach out to 3 Witches and a Druid, there is a wonderful Facebook page you can contact anytime, as well as Instagram. Oh, and Patreon. Duh.
Yes.
Join Patreon. The 3 Witches and a Druid are really great.
Krista enjoys her coffee. Buy her
I
coffee.
do. I do. My cup is empty. I have nothing.
Exactly. We need more.
It's tragic. And if we get enough Patreon supporters, I mean, there's a chance I could get a shot of espresso in that coffee. So things could get real.
or whiskey.
Or Baileys.
Or Baileys, yeah.
I mean, tequila of choice, but not in coffee. We're all adults here. It's fine.
There you go. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you, Brian. It was a delight. Perhaps next time we'll get all the ladies into and we can really talk over each other.
Yes, 100%. Thanks.
Amazing. Well, we'll chat soon, okay? And we thank you for listening. This has been 3 Witches and a Druid podcast. Thanks for listening.